The Cali Cartel, Spanish, Cartel de Cali, was a drug cartel based in southern Colombia, around the city of Cali and the Valle del Cauca department. Its founders were the brothers Gilberto Rodriguez Orjuela and Miguel Rodriguez Orjuela, and José Santa Cruz Londoño. They broke away from Pablo Escobar and his Medellin associates in the late 1980s, when Helmer Pacho Herrera joined what became a four-man executive board that ran the cartel. With connections to British and Israeli mercenaries, allies among countries, countless spies and informants in the government, and its vast intelligence and surveillance network throughout the city of Santiago de Cali, the cartel was once renowned and compared to the KGB by the DEA. At the height of the Cali cartel's reign, they were cited as having control over 90% of the world's cocaine market and were said to be directly responsible for the growth of the cocaine market in Europe, controlling 90% of the market there as well. By the mid-1990s, the trafficking empire of the Cali cartel was a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Foundation of the Orjuela. The Cali cartel was formed by the Rodriguez Orjuela brothers in Santa Cruz, all coming from what is described as a higher social background than most other traffickers of the time. The recognition of this social background was displayed in the group's nickname as Los Caballeros de Cali, Gentlemen of Cali. The group originally assembled as a ring of kidnappers known as Los Chemas, which was led by Luis Fernando Tamayo Garcia. Los Chemas were implicated in numerous kidnappings including those of two Swiss citizens, a diplomat, Herman Buff, and a student, Zach Jasmine Martin. The kidnappers reportedly received $700,000 in ransom, which is believed to have been used to fund their drug trafficking empire. The assembled group first involved itself in trafficking marijuana. Due to the product's low profit rate and large amounts required to traffic to cover resources, the fledgling group decided to shift their focus to a more lucrative drug, cocaine. In the early 1970s, the cartel sent Helmer Pacho Herrera to New York City to establish a distribution center. This action came during the time when the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, was not fully pursuing cocaine and viewed the drug as less critical than heroin. At one point, they released a report stating cocaine is not physically addictive and does not usually result in serious consequences, such as crime, hospital emergency room admissions, or both. The Cali cartel leadership comprised Gilberto Rodriguez Orjuela, Miguel Rodriguez Orjuela, José Santa Cruz Londoño, and Helmer Herrera Buitrago. Some top associates were Victor Patino Funk, Henry Loaiza Ceballos, ex-guerrilla José Fedore, and Fanner Isabeleta Arzea. Organization. The relaxed attitude of the DEA towards cocaine is believed to be what allowed the group to prosper. The group developed and organized itself into multiple cells that appeared to operate independently yet reported to a Celino manager. The independent cell structure is what set the Cali cartel apart from the Medellin cartel. The Cali cartel operated as a tight group of independent criminal organizations, as opposed to the Medellin structure of a central leader, Pablo Escobar. The Cali cartel eventually became known by then DEA Chief Thomas Constantine as the biggest, most powerful crime syndicate we've ever known. Activities. Trafficking. The Cali cartel, whose brief roots began in trafficking marijuana, soon shifted to cocaine due to its ease of transporting and greater profit margin. The cartel would be known for innovation in trafficking and production by moving its refining operations out of Colombia to Peru and Bolivia, as well as for pioneering new trafficking routes through Panama. The cartel also diversified into opium and was reported to have brought in a Japanese chemist to help its refining operation. According to reports and testimony of Thomas Constantine to the United States Congress, Cali would be the dominant group in trafficking South American heroin due to their access to the opium-growing areas of Colombia. Debate over the cartel's participation in heroin trafficking remains. It is believed the cartel's leaders were not involved in heroin trading, however close associates to them were, such as Ivan Urdinola Grajales, It is believed that their relationships led to cooperation with heroin distribution centers. At the height of the Cali cartel's reign, they were cited as having control over 90% of the world's cocaine market and for being directly responsible for the growth of the cocaine market in Europe, controlling 90% of the market. By the mid-1990s, the trafficking empire of the Cali cartel was a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Finances. In order to launder the incoming money of the trafficking operations, the Cali cartel heavily invested its funds into legitimate business ventures as well as front companies to mask the money. In 1996, it was believed the cartel was grossing $7 billion in annual revenue from the U.S. alone. With the influx of cash comes the need to launder the funds. One of the first instances of the Cali cartel's laundering operations came when Gilberto Rodriguez Orjuela was able to secure the position of chairman of the board of Banco de Trabajadores. The bank was believed to have been used to launder funds for the Cali cartel, as well as Pablo Escobar's Medellin cartel. Cartel members were permitted, through their affiliation with Gilberto, to overdraft accounts and take out loans without repayment. Capitalizing on this basis, Gilberto was able to found the first Inter-Americas Bank operating out of Panama. In an interview with Time, Gilberto admitted to money being laundered through the bank. However, he attributed the process to only legal actions. The laundering, which Gilberto states was in accordance with Panamanian law, is what led to the U.S. authorities pursuing him. Gilberto later started, in 1979, the Grupo Radio Colombiano, a network of over 30 radio stations, and a pharmaceutical chain named Drogas La Rebaja, which at its height amassed over 400 stores in 28 cities, employing 4,200. The pharmaceutical chain's value was estimated at $216 million. As a consequence of the Cali cartel's ownership of the chain, from January 1988 to May 4, 1990, it was targeted for 85 bombings by Pablo Escobar and the Medellin cartel, leaving a combined total of 27 people dead. Russian state connections. St. Petersburg Immobilien und Beteiligungen AG or SPEG is a real estate company registered in Germany under Vladimir Putin's control in 1992 and suspected by German police of facilitating St. Petersburg mobsters, Colombian drug lords, and transcontinental money laundering. The company's co-founder Rudolf Ritter was arrested in Liechtenstein for laundering cocaine cash for the Cali cartel. Former Ukrainian presidential bodyguard Nikolai Melnichenko bugged the following conversation between Ukrainian President Leonid Kuchma and his security chief Leonid Durkok about SPEG. Later in the conversation, Durkok states that, "They've bought up all these documents throughout Europe and only the rest are in our hands." Violence. Discipline. Political violence was largely discounted by the Cali cartel, as the threat of violence often sufficed. The organization of the cartel was structured so that only people who had family in Colombia would handle operations that involved both Cali and U.S. sites, keeping the family within reach of the cartel. Family members became the cartel's insurance that its members would not assist government officials, nor would they refuse payment for products received. The threat of death also hung over those who made mistakes. It is believed the cartel would often kill junior members who made gross errors. Social cleansing. In his book End of Millennium, Manuel Castells states the Cali cartel had participated in social cleansing of hundreds of desacables, discardables. The desacables included prostitutes, street children, petty thieves, homosexuals and the homeless. Along with some of the locals, the Cali cartel formed parties self-named Grupos de Limpieza social cleansing groups who murdered the desacables, often leaving them with signs on them stating, "Cali Limpia, Cali Linda, Clean Cali, Beautiful Cali." The bodies of those murdered were often tossed into the Cauca River, which later became known as the River of Death. The municipality of Marcela and Risaralda was eventually bankrupted by the cost of recovering corpses and conducting autopsies. Retaliation. In the 1980s and early 1990s, the communist guerrillas struck at the drug cartels. In 1981, the then guerrilla group, Movimiento 19 de Abril, M19, 19th of April movement, kidnapped Martin Eves Ochoa, the sister of the Medellin Cartel's Ochoa brothers, Jorge, Fabio and Juan David. M19 demanded a ransom of $15 million for Marta's safe release, but were rejected. In response to the kidnapping, the Medellin and Cali cartels, as well as associated traffickers, formed the group Muerte Sequestradores, MAS, Death to Kidnappers. Traffickers contributed funds, rewards, equipment and manpower for MAS operations. Leaflets soon after were dropped in a football pitch in Cali announcing the formation of the group. MAS began to capture and torture M19 members in retaliation. Within 3 days, Martin Eves was released. The group MAS, however, would continue to operate, with hundreds of killings attributed to them. In 1992, the guerrilla faction Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarias de Colombia (FARC), Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, kidnapped Cristina Santa Cruz, the daughter of Cali cartel leader José Santa Cruz Londoño. FARC demanded in exchange for the safe return of Cristina a ransom of $10 million. In response, the Cali cartel kidnapped 20 or more members of the Colombian Communist Party, Patriotic Union, the United Workers Union, and the sister of Pablo Catatumbo, a representative of the Simon Bolívar Guerrilla Coordinating Board. Eventually, after talks, Cristina and the sister of Catatumbo were released. It is unknown what happened to the other hostages taken by the cartel. During the NARCO terror war waged by Pablo Escobar on the Colombian government, it is believed a hired assassin attempted to kill Herrera while he was attending a sports event. The gunman opened fire using a machine gun on the crowd where Herrera was sitting, killing 19. However, he did not hit Herrera. Herrera is believed to be a founding member of Los Pepes, a group which operated alongside authorities with the intention of killing or capturing Pablo Escobar. The Cali cartel then hired a member of Colombia's military, a civil engineer named Jorge Salcedo. They wanted him to help them plot an assassination on Pablo Escobar. They hired him because they heard that Salcedo had in the past befriended and hired a group of mercenaries to wage war against the left-wing guerrilla forces in an operation sanctioned by Colombia's military. The mercenary group was made up of 12 former Special Operations soldiers, including the British Special Air Service. Salcedo felt it was his patriotic duty and accepted the deal to bring the mercenaries back to Colombia and help plan the operation to kill Pablo Escobar. The group of British ex-soldiers accepted the offer. The cartel provided food, housing, and weapons to the mercenaries. The plan was to attack Escobar at his Hacienda Nápoles compound. They trained for a few months until they heard Escobar was going to be staying at the compound, celebrating the fact that his football team had won the tournament. They were going to be inserted by use of 2 heavily armed Hughes 500 helicopters and surprise attack Escobar during the early morning. They painted the helicopters to look like police helicopters to further confuse them. They took off and headed towards the compound, but one of the helicopters ended up crashing onto a mountainside, minutes away from the compound. The pilot was killed during the crash. The plan was aborted and they had to conduct a rescue mission up the dense mountainside. Finally, Escobar went to prison, where he continued to run his Medellin cartel and menace rivals from his cell. The second plot to kill Escobar was to bomb the prison by using an A-37 Dragonfly surplus ground attack jet bomber in private ownership. The Cali cartel had a connection in El Salvador, a general of El Salvador's military who illegally sold them 4 500-pound bombs for about $500,000. Salcedo flew over to El Salvador to oversee the plan to pick up the bombs and take them to an airfield where a civilian jet would land to pick them up and take them to Colombia. But when the jet landed at the airfield, they found that it was a small executive jet. They attempted to load the 4 bombs, and what was planned to be a few minutes, it took them over 20 minutes. By this time there was a crowd of civilians that had gathered at the airfield curious about what was happening. Only 3 bombs fit, stacked in the small passenger cabin. The jet took off and Salcedo abandoned the fourth bomb and went back to his hotel. The morning after, the activities of the night before were all over the news. Salcedo barely escaped El Salvador and arrest before the botched pickup was exposed. Law enforcement had discovered the bomb and some of the people involved in the operation were arrested, and they told authorities about the plot to kill Escobar with the bombs. The Cali cartel then decided to abort the air bombing plot. There was no turning back for Salcedo. The Colombian government labeled him a criminal now working for the Cali cartel, and his employers would not let him go anyway. Salcedo then settled into managing security for the Orjuela family, but then he was forced to witness an execution of 4 Panamanians, and tasked with organizing the murder of Guillermo Palomari, their own cartel accountant. Salcedo faced a choice: to kill or risk being killed along with his family. Salcedo then decided to retaliate and save Palomari and himself by contacting the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency and work as an informant. This proved to be the death blow to the Cali cartel. For his service, Salcedo and his extended family were relocated to the U.S. and he received rewards of about $1.7 million. Counterintelligence. The Counterintelligence and Education Center of the Cali cartel often surprised the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, and Colombian officials. It was discovered, in a 1995 raid of Cali cartel offices, that the cartel had been monitoring all phone calls made in and out of Bogotá and Cali, including the U.S. Embassy in Bogotá and the Ministry of Defense. The laptop allowed Londono to eavesdrop on phone calls being made as well as analyze phone lines for wiretaps. While officials were able to discover the use of the laptop, it is reported they were unable to decrypt many of the files due to sophisticated encryption techniques. Londono was also believed to have a person within the phone company itself, which the officials realized when he was able to recognize a phone tap, one that had been placed directly at the phone company, instead of at his residence. Londono's lawyer soon sent an official notice requesting the legality and requesting the warrant if one was produced. Included in the list of government officials and officers on the Cali cartel payroll were a reported 5,000 taxi drivers. The taxi drivers would allow the cartel to know who was arriving in the city and when, as well as where they were staying. By having numerous taxi drivers on the payroll, the cartel was able to monitor the movements of officials and dignitaries. It is reported by Time magazine, in 1991, DEA and U.S. Customs Service, now ICE, agents were monitoring a shipment being offloaded in Miami, only to find out later that the DEA agents were the target of Cali surveillance at the same time. Jorge Salcedo, a member of Colombia's military, was put in charge of the cartel's intelligence and later provide security to Miguel. He would later, ironically, be crucial in helping destroy the cartel and pinpointing where Miguel was hiding. He designed and set up a large hidden radio network across the city allowing members to communicate wherever they were. They also had many people inside law enforcement working for them, including a high-ranking member of the Bloque de Búsqueda search block who were looking for the Cali cartel's top leaders. When law enforcement had finally cornered Miguel inside an apartment, the double agent was there, along with other law enforcement including 2 DEA agents trying to find the secret compartment in which Miguel was hiding. Law enforcement failed to find him in time and were forced to leave the apartment. They maintained a perimeter around the building to prevent his escape. The double agent was crucial in helping Miguel escape, as he hid Miguel in his car and drove away from the scene untroubled. Medellin cartel relations. First Interamerica's Bank Jorge Ochoa, a high-ranking Medellin financier, and Gilberto Rodriguez had been childhood friends and years later co-owned the Panamanian First Interamerica's Bank. The institution was later cited by United States officials as a money laundering operation, which allowed both the Cali cartel and the Medellin cartel to move and launder large amounts of funds. Only through diplomatic pressure on then Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega could the U.S. put an end to the bank's use as a money laundering front. In a Time magazine interview, Gilberto Rodriguez admitted to laundering money through the bank but noted that the process broke no Panamanian laws. Mirrored ancestors. The two cartels participated in other joint ventures in later years, such as the founding of Muerte Sequestradores, MAS, who successfully returned Ochoa's kidnapped sister, Marta Nieves Ochoa. Expanding on the prior success of MAS, the cartels and independent traffickers would meet again. The second meeting is believed to have been the start of an organization trafficking between the primary participants, the Medellin Cartel and Cali Cartel. The two cartels divided up the major United States distribution points. The Cali Cartel took New York City and the Medellin Cartel took South Florida and Miami. Los Angeles was left up for grabs. Through their affiliation in MAS, it is also believed the cartels decided to work together to stabilize prices, production, and shipments of the cocaine market. However, the strategic alliance formed with the foundation of MAS in 1981 began to crumble by 1983-1984, due to the ease of competition. As the cartels set up infrastructure, routes, transport methods, and bribes, it became easier for competitors to either establish similar deals or make use of those already put in place by other cartels. By 1987, the cooperation forged by the formation of MAS no longer existed. Contributing to the demise was the Medellin cartel's Rodriguez Gacha, who attempted to move in on the New York City market, previously ceded to the Cali cartel, and the 1986 arrest of Jorge Ochoa at a police roadblock, which the Medellin cartel deemed suspicious and attributed partly to the Cali cartel. Los Papes in later years. As Pablo Escobar's NARCO terror war escalated against the Colombian government, the government began to strike back in ever-escalating battles. As the Medellin cartel weakened due to the fighting and constant pressure, the Cali cartel grew in strength, eventually founding Los Papes, or Persiguidos por Pablo Escobar, people persecuted by Pablo Escobar. Los Papes was specifically formed to target the Medellin cartel and bring about the downfall of Pablo Escobar. It is believed Los Papes provided information to Search Block, a joint police and army unit specifically created to track down Medellin leaders. In exchange for information, Los Papes received assistance from the United States Counterterrorism Unit, Delta Force, through its links to Search Block. By the time of Escobar's capture and eventual death in December 1993, Los Papes had been responsible for the deaths or executions of over 60 associates or members of the Medellin cartel. The death of Pablo Escobar led to the dismantling of the Medellin cartel and the rise of the Cali cartel. Law enforcement seizures. While the Cali cartel operated with a degree of immunity early on, owing to its ties to the government and the Medellin cartel's NARCO terrorism war on the Colombian government, they were still subjected to drug seizures. In 1991 alone, law enforcement agencies seized 67 tons of cocaine, 75% originating from the Cali cartel. In total, the U.S. Customs Service, USCS, alone had spent 91,855 case hours and 13 years in investigations against the Cali cartel, seizing 50 tons of cocaine and $15 million in assets. In 1991, a shipment of cocaine hidden inside of concrete posts was intercepted with the aid of a drug-sniffing dog at the Miami seaport. It led to seizure of 12,000 kilograms, 26,455 pounds of cocaine and several arrests, beginning what the U.S. Customs Service would dub Operation Cornerstone, which lasted 14 years. In another seizure the following year, a USCS wiretap on Harold Ackerman, whose affiliation was derived from the 1991 seizure, enabled the arrest of 7 individuals and 6,000 kilograms, 13,228 pounds of cocaine hidden in a load of broccoli. Accounting ledgers were seized in related arrests, which allowed the identification of another shipment being sent to Panama hidden in tiles. This information was passed to Panamanian authorities and led to the seizure of 5,100 kilograms, 11,244 pounds. In 1993, The U.S. Customs Service struck again at the Cali cartel, this time seizing 5,600 kilograms, 12,346 pounds, while pursuing Raul Marti, the only remaining member of the defunct Miami cell. It is believed these successive raids forced the cartel to funnel its shipments through Mexico. However, that did not stop the U.S. Customs Service. 3 maritime ships were intercepted in 1993, with a total of 17,000 kilograms, 37,479 pounds. Major arrests. Between June and July 1995, the remaining 6 of the 7 heads of the cartel were arrested. Gilberto was arrested in his home, and Henry Loaiza Ceballos, Victor Patino Funk, and Fanner Isabel Arzea surrendered to authorities. Jose Santa Cruz Landolno was captured in a restaurant, and a month later, Miguel Rodriguez was apprehended during a raid. It is widely believed that the cartel continued to operate and run trafficking operations from within prison. The Rodriguez brothers were extradited in 2006 to the United States and pleaded guilty in Miami, Florida, to charges of conspiracy to import cocaine into the United States. Upon their confession, they agreed to forfeit $2.1 billion in assets. The agreement, however, did not require them to cooperate in other investigations. They were solely responsible for identification of assets stemming from their cocaine trafficking. Colombian officials raided and seized the Drogas La Rebaja pharmacy chain, replacing 50 of its 4,200 workers on the grounds that they were serving the interests of the Cali cartel. See also narco-trafficking in Colombia. References. Footnotes. Bibliography.